Welcome to Casually Addicted's two-player review of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
So to start with, we're going to be looking at the story of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. So Craig, tell us all about this game.
Well, before we start talking about the game, let's take it all the way back to when this game was actually called something else. Initially, the game was called Metal Gear Solid Rising. You'll recognise Metal Gear Solid from the series' other games, which actually include the Solid title, and was actually developed in-house at Kojima Productions. However, the team at Kojima Productions, the young team, as Hideo Kojima likes to say, had some problems with it.
Oh yeah? What kind of problems?
Well, you see, they had the fundamentals down, but they couldn't really get the cut everything technique to work properly. So Kojima actually cancelled the project.
Oh right.
Didn't tell anyone though. And then eventually, just by chance, he happened to meet up with some of the guys from Platinum Games.
Yeah.
Asked them to develop it. They didn't take him seriously at first. Thought he was joking.
All right.
But eventually they decided to take the game up, and within 10 months, maybe 11 months, depending on where they started, develop Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, a good bit of knowledge there.
Yeah, that's before the game.
Okay.
I guess we should talk about the game now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is not only a butchering of the English language, with Revenge and Vengeance put together. It's set 4 years after Metal Gear Solid 4, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with and completely understands the ending to that story.
Definitely.
It's set in a world where the Patriots no longer exist. Raiden works for a PMC, private military company. I'm not going to go too far into it, but basically Platinum Games have got an excuse to turn the whole world into having cyborgs and develop a Platinum-style game in the vein of Bayonetta and Vanquish.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool, to be fair, though.
Basically, it just cuts everything up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen a trailer at least by now, and you can see, you know, that is by no means sort of an exaggeration of what actually happens in that game.
Yeah, the original idea for the game came from one of the cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4, where Raiden takes on a multitude of geckos. And Kojima Productions initially just wanted to make a game that looked like that. And to be fair, Platinum have achieved exactly that.
So obviously this is a Metal Gear game, but we don't really have the same sort of stealth emphasis, I take it, that you usually would in the prior sort of Metal Gear Solid games.
No, not at all. Hideo Kojima hasn't had much to do with this game other than sort of overall supervision. So the team at Platinum have developed an action title. There is still stealth elements in there.
All right.
Nowhere near as strong as the previous Metal Gear Solid titles. You've still got your drum cannon, the famous cardboard box.
The cardboard box, yeah.
There are actually men that hide in boxes during the game as well that you can find. But no, there's a heavy emphasis on action. You could probably stealth your way through quite a lot of the game, but in my eyes, you wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
There's always a want and a need from the player, I feel, to want to go into battle, to want to charge enemies, because it is just so fun.
So how does it control? Like, obviously you've got this new kind of blade mechanic, and they've emphasised that you could, you know, cut through everything in precise angles. How does that all work? How does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, guns aren't totally off the radar. You have got secondary weapons of a rocket launcher and a homing launcher. I can't think of a specific name. But really, you will hardly ever use them, to be honest. Your primary weapon is a sword, samurai sword, or an HF blade, high frequency blade,
right,
that they call it in the Metal Gear series. And it's a two button system, light and heavy attacks. You can get secondary weapons later on, but most of the emphasis will be on the sword.
Yeah.
You can mix up it. In a way, it's a kind of bit like Devil May Cry.
So you can upgrade stuff, I take it. You can upgrade your weapon or weapons.
Yeah, you can upgrade your weapons, secondary weapons, and get sort of new weapons. I'm sure there'll be even more weapons through DLC.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a heavy emphasis on sort of a combo system, and also something called Blade Mode,
right,
which really is the star of the show here.
Okay.
This is kind of what separates it from sort of a Devil May Cry or something of that nature. when you get your enemy down to possibly a certain amount of health, some enemies you can do it straight away. A quick press of L1 or LB if you're on the Xbox will take you into a slow down timed blade mode, and from here you can cut your enemy up however you like.
Yeah.
It's going to sound a bit sick, but it's really fun.
Yeah, no, I bet.
It's really fun to slice the limbs off. And there's also, again, this is again part of the reason why you want to go into battle, is because if you cut your opponent correctly at the right angle or sort of the right time, you can do something that's called Zandatsu,
Okay.
which is Japanese for cut and take.
Right.
And you refill your health bar up, refill your sort of kind of energy bar up.
Yeah.
So it feels like every battle you go into, there's a reward coming out of it.
Yeah, yeah. You're getting something for, like, just instead of just killing, you're actually getting your health back, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and the whole time as well, you're earning points to go towards your upgrades and that as well. So
So what other kind of customization is there? Obviously, you can upgrade your weapons, things like that. But is there anything else you can do?
yeah, totally. I mean, you can change the costume, get new secondary weapons. Can't think of anything else at the minute.
Health, anything like that?
Oh
You
yeah,
can-
upgrade your health, your life cells. There's a lot of things like that.
So what about, like, you know, obviously you go into battle and I take it you've got a couple of buttons that you press for slash and dash, whatever it might be. Now, can you learn different kind of moves or anything like that? Is there anything else extra in terms of what Raiden can do himself?
Yeah, again with the upgrade system as well, you can unlock sort of new moves, and then when you do unlock the secondary moves, secondary weapons, when you defeat bosses,
Yeah.
you can then combine those two weapons together.
Okay, so you've got a little bit to sort of upgrade, customise, whatever. Sounds good. So, you know, obviously the whole emphasis is on this cutting and killing everything and just kind of going mad. But as you get sort of throughout the game and you progress on, do you find it gets boring at all, or?
No, not at all, to be honest with you. Some of the bosses and some of the enemies later on kind of, in a way, neutralise the cutting mechanic. They make you think about it.
Right.
Earlier stages, you will just slice and dice just like a madman, to be honest with you. But as the game gets slightly more difficult, you face slightly tougher enemies, more thinking enemies. You'll have to slice at a specific angle in order to rip their armour off or to cut off one of their arms.
Right.
But the thing about the enemies is there's a couple of enemies in particular. If you cut off their arms, they will just drop kick you to the face.
They just keep going.
They will just keep going.
That's a true soldier for you.
Definitely.
How pleased you are to chop away, Jack the Ripper. My name is Monsoon, of the Winds of Destruction.
So again, with Metal Gear games, there's always been a renowned history of having, you know, crazy bosses or kind of these very unique bosses. Essentially, you know, what are they like in Rising?
Well, as per past Metal Gear games, we have a group of individuals here again, this time called the Winds of Destruction. There are, four of them.
Okay.
And I won't go into too much detail surrounding the background of the boss battles, which you can probably see on the screen now. But they are definitely some of the best I've seen in a while. And compared to previous Metal Gear games, they definitely rank up there as some of the more interesting fights in the series.
Oh, cool.
Even by Metal Gear's own sort of high standards, they've each got something special.
Yeah.
Individually, to make it just that little bit more than sort of facing an enemy in another game with like 3 times the health or something.
They've each
like
got
that.
something slightly more unique than the last boss you may have fought.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So far it sounds, you know, like Metal Gear Rising is a pretty sound game overall. It sounds like a lot of fun, but I mean, has it got any problems or any issues with it at all?
There's one issue in particular that will crop up. The camera itself isn't the greatest.
Okay.
It's fine for the majority of the game, but the minute you get to a small corridor or a small kind of room, it's the camera kind of has a mind of its own,
Right.
in a sense. It's difficult to turn it to face your enemies because some of the enemies move very quickly in this game.
Okay, yeah.
And you have to keep up with them, and it's difficult to do that when the camera isn't playing ball,
Yeah.
so to speak. But I mean, that's the biggest kind of negative against this game. The other kind of negative you can put up here is the actual length of the campaign.
Yeah.
which you can complete in 6 to 7 hours.
So it is relatively short.
It is a relatively short game, but in contrast to that, despite its short length, it is 100 miles an hour and it doesn't let up for 90% of the time.
Okay.
It is probably the most fun I've had with a game in probably years.
Oh, really?
It's just constant, in your face, slice, slice, slice. It just doesn't stop. So, while for some people the length is obviously going to be a negative, for me it was a positive, because I wonder if Platinum did go that extra couple of hours, would it start draining? Would it start getting a bit samey?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But for those who are looking for that little bit more, there are collectibles to go through, and as we spoke about earlier about the upgrade system, you can still keep earning the points, upgrading your character. There's various difficulty modes, right up to Revengeance difficulty,
Right.
which do not take that mode lightly.
Yeah.
There's also a ton of VR missions as well, not for the Xbox 360 version in America.
Oh, really?
It's not included in that,
How strange.
but there are VR missions coming, not coming, already on the PS3 version.
Yeah.
And they are also a bit of a challenge.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've only really got one more question for you.
Okay.
Now, I mean, when I heard this game was coming out, and it's been going around for a while, I heard there was a lot of sort of negative talk about it not being a Metal Gear game, and then that kind of being a problem for a lot of people. But I mean, I know you're a big Metal Gear Solid fan, so what's your take on that kind of thing?
I'm really happy with how it's turned out. The Metal Gear franchise, the Metal Gear Solid franchise, I should say, it's kind of reached its end. It's petered out a little bit, and it did need a bit of an injection. I'm sure for some people they didn't want this direction for it to completely ditch the stealth, but I think if they can work out a way to have the Metal Gear Rising franchise being the action, fast-paced sort of thing, and have at the side of it the Metal Gear Solid stealth action,
Your classic kind of Metal Gear game.
yeah, your classic Metal Gear feel. I think if they can juggle those two together, then I think Konami and Kojima Productions are onto a winner, basically.
Mind if I got in?
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance isn't perfect by any means, but if you play games for fun, then Platinum Games have excelled in this department. If it wasn't for a jolty camera, then Rising could easily have been the first game awarded full marks here on Casually Addicted. As it stands now though, Rising is a fantastic way to see off this console generation. With the PlayStation 4 and the next Xbox just around the corner, imagine what Platinum and Kojima Productions might be able to do with an inevitable sequel. In closing, Rising is a fantastic addition to the Metal Gear franchise that dazzles and oozes class all the way through. If you're looking for high-octane fun, then look no further. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance delivers on all fronts.